My name is Nick Laidlaw. I'm a holistic exercise and lifestyle coach from Sydney's Northern Beaches. I've created a video platform because I'd love to reach as many people as possible with these simple messages of health. I've also interviewed a host of individuals from our community. In their lives and in their own way, they've all helped to shape me be a better person. So I hope that they inspire you in some way too. All right, Marcus, welcome to Angoffa Reserve amongst the beautiful trees.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to have a chat with me.
Awesome.
I thought we'd start off just by getting you to tell us a story, which you've told me a few times, but what kind of led you down the track to becoming a student of meditation?
Well, I learned to meditate roughly 6 years ago. At that stage in my life, I was a freelance film director, quite a stressful job, young family, just kind of increasing pressure. So the film directing was stressful in the sense that when you're freelance, you know, when you're busy, you're super busy and that's stressful. And then when you're not, you don't know when your next income's coming in.
Yeah.
So, and I just think over that period, I was just finding increasing pressure. I probably didn't even realize actually. And then eventually it culminated in some sort of panic attack, stress-induced anxiety, and it just wasn't something I could live with.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at the time, Gary Gorrow, my teacher, had just come back to Avalon, and I ran into him, and I hadn't seen Gary for years, and I looked at him, and he just was radiating kind of peace and bliss, and I thought, I need myself some of that.
So you decided to learn with Gary, learn that technique?
Yeah, I went to one of Gary's intro talks, and he had me hooked before he even spoke, and then I was booked in the next night and off I went.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what do you think, there is a lot to say about a teacher of any sort to be able to radiate that kind of wellness that you want to kind of embody within yourself, isn't there?
Oh, I mean, it's so much more powerful than words.
Yeah.
You know, if Gary was saying everything he was saying, but looking completely stressed out, it wouldn't really say, or would it?
Resonate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And what were some of the effects, or what were some of the positive gains that you received from learning that technique in your life as a whole?
You got a day.
Lots.
Look, I mean, you know, immediately, like literally from the first session, I felt a clarity come over me. I've said this many times before, but I felt like I had a foggy windscreen that was just wiped clear.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, walking out of Gary's studio and just looking around the world and just seeing everything fresh for the first time, and, you know, probably since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that feeling never left me. It's come back once or twice when I've been really sick, and I've kind of thought, oh, that's that way I used to be before.
The fog.
Yeah, the fog, which is just, I think, brought on from incessant mental noise and tiredness. So that was the first thing. And then from there, it's just never stopped. It's just increasing peace, clarity, happiness, you know, internal happiness that's not dependent on what's going on in my life. So I used to be so up and down depending on whether, you know, I won a big job I was pitching or lost it or something like that. And now it's a kind of equanimity, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just always sort of sailing in a level of peace, and then the other stuff's kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. And what about, you say you were a young parent when you first begun to learn the technique or learn to meditate. What effect did that have on maybe being a parent?
Oh, I probably wasn't a young parent. I was old enough, but my kids
your kids were young.
I mean, it affects everything, but I think, you know, parenting's so all-consuming. So I guess it's one of the things that you can really, it's a good litmus test for what's going on in your life, the way you're dealing with things. And what I've found increasingly, and it's still a work in progress, is that I'm just so much more capable of being present with them, so much less reactive. It takes, you know, I think without meditation and with stress, you can take things so personally, like a kid kind of behaving in a certain way, and you can treat it as if it's some sort of thing against you. And so now I just find that it's just much easier to kind of just to see it for what it is, that it's just a kid being a kid. And you know, being present, what could be more important in parenthood, you know, that these years pass so quickly. And so I feel like now I'm actually with them, I'm I'm always engaged and I'm always part of their life, and rather than being kind of drifting off into thoughts about work or something else.
Yeah. So it's like, it seems to be a parent, you need to be incredibly present, but what are some tips, aside from the meditation techniques which you practice, that help you stay present, help you stay grounded, you know, to be, for lack of a better word, a mindful parent? How would you recommend, or you know, some tips to help that?
Listening, like actually listening, active listening is a really good mindfulness technique, and it's amazing with the kids because kids know when you're listening, and they flourish, and they really kind of flower when you're listening.
Yeah.
So just engaging, being interested in their interests rather than kind of, it's so easy, you know, when they start talking about things that maybe outside of your field of interest to just drift away.
Yeah.
But actually to engage and be genuinely interested. I don't know, just be loving, kind, understanding. I think it's also like, people can take it so seriously, parenting, and I guess it is a really serious, maybe it's one of the most important jobs you'll ever do, but at the same time, I think just being really kind of lighthearted about it and being fun.
Having fun.
Yeah. I think this generation of kids, you know, they grow up so quickly and there's so much competition instilled in them. So I think kind of working in the other areas, like rather than training them to be competitive, like trying to work on things like teaching them kindness and empathy and things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And how's it changed you as a man, from before you had kids to becoming a parent? How's it changed your life?
I don't surf as much. Well, I still surf a fair bit. You learn to, I guess you have to learn to put other people's needs ahead of yours. I think I was probably quite selfish before that, and maybe I still am at times. I don't know, but
when LA's really good.
Yeah, when LA's pumping. Learning to surrender preferences, which I guess is one of the most important thing in any relationship. But I think with children, you can't think of yourself first all the time. Yeah.
Was that something that you slipped into pretty seamlessly, or was it conscious and mindful that you begun to say, you know what, I have to take the back seat here?
Yeah, I think it was more something I had to actively do.
Yeah.
I do remember sitting at the rock pool at Avalon, you know, holding Lulu when she was little and just thinking, oh my God, it is pumping out there.
And you couldn't get out there?
It was like torture. At the surf, I found that the surf looks, you know, like 3 times better when you've got children.
Surf. Yeah.
So no, it was definitely something I grew into.
Yeah, for sure. And how big a role has the ocean played in your life? You know, just like parenting, to becoming more of a man, having something to really equalize you and, you know, increase your happiness. What's the ocean done for you in that respect?
What an amazing place we live. Like, so grateful to have the ocean, and it is really, I guess it's one of my main loves in life. Surfing, but even just being in the ocean, if it's not surfing, going for a swim or something. Yeah. I guess in a lot of ways it's kind of like meditation, isn't it? It teaches you flow. Yeah. Teaches you that to actually relinquish control in a lot of ways. You don't have control over the ocean. You can only actually go with the energy of it. Yeah. Yeah. So
it's really been that metaphor, which is applicable back on land as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've also found that conversely, the meditations really help the experience of the ocean. Like, I find surfing now so much more enjoyable all the time. I used to find that it had, you know, the conditions had to be right, and you could actually get really frustrated if it was crowded or you weren't getting your share of waves or something. And now I find just the actual experience of paddling or being out there or something so peaceful.
Yeah, it heightens that awareness. Yeah, I found that too, actually. And then, so can you talk to us about the transition from when you became a student of meditation to then how it took a bigger role in your life, and now you're actually a teacher?
Yeah, so I mean, it became a massive part of my life straight away. Strangely enough, when I sat in Gary's course learning, I actually had this sense that I was going to teach it one day, but it seemed kind of so unrealistic, so I kind of didn't really entertain it that much at the time. But it was certainly something that I was looking at him and I was thinking, I would love to do this for a job. But it seemed like I'd have to go to India for 10 years and train and all this stuff, so it seemed unrealistic. Over the time, I just spent a lot of time with Gary and doing further training and with Tom and things, and then at some stage a few years ago, I just decided it's something that I really wanted to teach, because it was something that had changed my life so much, and it was something that I'd seen you know, with Cass, with my wife, with so many friends and colleagues and things, I've just seen so much positive expansion in people, and it was something I wanted to facilitate. So I asked Gary, and he happened to be running a teacher training course, and that was how the journey started.
Has it been awesome since you become a teacher?
Oh, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute love. You know, I'm still directing, and I still love that creative side of my life, but the teaching is just, it's something that's it's actually impossible for me to describe how amazing it's been.
Really?
Just to be, and you'd experience this as well, just to be connecting with people and helping to facilitate their change.
Yeah.
It's such a positive thing.
And do you feel, can you talk about the feeling or the notion of finding your dharma or finding your purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the quickest way to find your purpose is just following your heart. It's getting out of your head and following what your heart is telling you want to do. And, you know, I mean, dharma is often kind of misunderstood as being, you know, what you do for a career, or, you know, what you do in that sense of your life. But actually, it doesn't need to be that. It can be as simple as just how you live your life in general, you know. And I think finding, just being true to yourself, being true to your nature. So for me, I guess, you know, before that, I was pursuing these external things through directing and wanting to kind of crack it big in that field, that, if I'm quite honest with myself, never felt very true to my nature. So, you know, when this came along and I was, you know, opened my heart and followed that, then you just start to get into flow. You start to realise that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it can seem so complicated to people, but I think it's essentially your mind getting in the way.
Aside from, obviously, the practice of meditation helps stilling the mind, but what are some other practices that you have taken on to be more clear with listening to your heart?
Well, you know, the practice of meditation is like 20 minutes twice a day. It's about 3% of our day, so you've got another huge chunk of your day to get through, and so it's kind of taking those lessons from meditation and applying it to your day. So being mindful in everything you do, but also connecting with nature, you know, going in the ocean, coming in here. We live down the road, I love coming for walks in here. Anything that kind of connects me with nature keeps me really grounded. But you don't need to be removed from life to be grounded. This is the thing, like, we meditate not for what happens in the 20 minutes, as you know, but for what happens in our life. And what you find increasingly happens is that you become more centered in your being at all times. So you can be in total chaos. I can be in the middle of a chaotic film set and still feel completely connected to my deeper sense of being. And so that's, I guess it's partly an active choice to remain centered like that, but actually it's just kind of a byproduct of meditating as well. Yeah.
Cool. And what does it feel like for you to be in flow? What's it feel like when you wake up to how your day kind of unfolds?
Well, being in flow in comparison to being out of flow, it's just...
Is that how you realise what flow feels like, to be completely away from it?
I think so. I think it's those occasional times when you drift out of it, because actually everything normalises. Every state of consciousness normalises, and I think living in flow normalises, and it just becomes your normal state of being. And I guess how it feels is just, you know, if you step back and look at that, it feels like effortless. It feels effortless, it feels easy, it feels, you feel centered, you feel happy, you feel at peace, all those sort of things. And when you drift out of that, when you go off the path, it's just, all it is a reminder to get back to that path and get back on flow.
So in some ways it's essential to drift off the path sometimes to realise that this is what it's doing for me.
It's certainly very human.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people relate to you in our community and are taught by you and really connect to you is because you are completely human. You know, you're living a life where you're juggling being a dad, being in production, being a teacher, being an absolute frother, that surfing has pretty much taken the top priority of your life. How is it to be, do you think that's essential part of being a teacher, just being perfectly imperfect?
It is for me.
Yeah.
I think every teacher's different. You can only be yourself. I mean, it's the same with you. If you're not being yourself, then no one's going to connect to you. So I can only be what I am, and that's what I am. So,
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And did it always come naturally did it take you long to realise that? Or did you ever try and be a guru and go, oh, this doesn't work for me?
No.
No.
No. I could. No, it's too difficult to not be yourself. It's just, if you want to be in flow, like you have to be yourself. And my gurus like Gary and Tom and everyone, such amazing people, but they're their own people. You can't try to be them.
Yeah.
I think Gary warned us very much about that as well. I think
Yeah.
because I think Gary was quite young when he started learning, and I remember him mentioning that he kind of tried to channel a lot of Tom before he found his own style, and I think he was kind enough to warn us about that.
Save you the trouble.
Yeah, save us the trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. How important a role in your life have mentors been, whether that's been Cassie, your wife, or whether it's been Gary or Tom Knowles? How big a role have they played in your life to help you get to where you are now?
I think it's almost, I guess, for everyone. It starts with your parents and then goes from there. But I think these sort of later day mentors are so important. Once we sort of grow up and we move beyond our parents and we're kind of on our own path for a little while. And I think that when you start finding, I guess our culture is so far removed from spiritual ideas and so I guess coming across people like Gary and Tom Knowles is it's a real awakening, and without them there's no way I would have found this path. So
Essential.
Yeah.
Do you think for anybody else trying to evolve and grow as themselves as a human, do you think it is an essential part of that growth to have somebody to look up to and to guide you and pull, give you that direction?
It seems to be. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be one mentor or guru. I think people can get their wisdom and inspiration from all sorts of channels.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that it would be a much more difficult path on your own.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I guess all the traditions have always, at least the Vedic tradition has always been is guru student based. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think you've mentioned to me before that your kids can be big teachers of you as well, and you write, in your beautiful emails that you send out to your crew, you've mentioned more than once that your kids have been like great teachers for you as well.
Yeah, they can be amazing teachers, and sometimes it's without, sometimes inadvertently, sometimes by just what they trigger in you, reminding you of places that you still need to work on.
For sure.
Other times just by their incredible wisdom and their honesty and their childlike way of seeing the world.
Yeah. Brings you back.
Yeah. But sometimes my children, it's the knowledge is so deep that they teach you as well. It's so amazing that there seems to be so many wise kids these days.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Yeah, for sure.
Really conscious children.
So if people out there were keen to increase their consciousness and they wanted maybe a resource to kind of get them on that path, is there any books or docos or anything like that that drew your attention when you were kind of coming into those formative years? That you recommend?
I spent so much of my 20s reading.
Yeah.
But knowledge is good, but I think experience is so much better. I just learned to meditate.
Yeah.
And all the books are great. I loved. But I spent my 20s reading them, but not actively doing it. So, it's kind of useless in that sense.
Yeah, in the sense that the experience tops everything.
I think so.
For sure.
I think so. And then once you've got the experience, when you read those books, you actually understand on a deep level what they're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess when I read them, a lot of those books the first time, it's a much more superficial understanding.
More intellectual knowledge.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'd have to think about the books. Siddhartha is one that I've reread recently, which is just a beautiful journey.
Yeah,
really amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, cool. Cheers. On a bigger scheme of the world, the world that we live in, the community that we are, what is one thing, if at all, that you'd like to see shifted in our consciousness?
I think for me, like what seems like the biggest change that needs to happen is a bit of a shift from kind of masculine energy to feminine energy in the world, and I think that, you know, that, and this kind of, and I think largely it's not just men that have to do that either. I think that it's a female shift as well. I think that there's it seems to me in a lot of ways that the female energy, as a lot of females strive for success in the world as well, has become kind of like competitive with male energy. So I think in that sense it's becoming kind of more open-hearted, more loving, kind, compassionate, more empathetic.
Yeah. What are some qualities that you believe make a really good man?
Those qualities I just said.
Same,
Yeah.
Same with a woman?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. But I think I'd add, well, I'll speak for men, not for women, but I think adding probably strength to that as well. Yeah. So it's kind of strength, but not in the traditional sense. Strength with pliability, flexibility, kind of like what you teach physically. You know, it's that kind of
a balance of softness and hardness.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that makes for a perfect body, but it makes for, I think that's a perfect kind of masculine energy as well.
Awesome, that's good. Okay, and then going back to the greater scheme of things, what is something in the consciousness of our community and the world at large that you are liking the direction that we're heading in right now?
Well, it's actually all that same thing. I'm seeing so much of that, you know. So I've had the great pleasure recently of teaching a bunch of younger guys to meditate, and it just blows me away how conscious some of this next generation coming through are. And I think, you know, you're a perfect embodiment of that as well. And I think that people like you in this community are helping to spread that. And, you know, we may be a fairly unique community up here, but, you know, places start and they become, you know, lighthouses for other places, and then it starts to spread. Absolutely. And I think that, I think that there's a lot of positive change coming from this next generation.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And so if you were to have your absolutely perfect day, how would it start and what would it look like?
It starts with meditation.
Yeah. What time would you get up on a perfect day?
I'd like to be getting up earlier than I have been recently. I've been shooting a lot and kind of tired in the morning, so I'm getting up. At the moment, I'm getting up pretty much with the sun. Yeah. Meditating, and then a perfect day would look like going surfing after that. Yeah. And then kind of getting into some work. Teaching in the evening would be perfect as well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. That's beautiful. Cool. Well, you know, speaking of lighthouses and being a beacon of light, you are an embodiment of that for the community. So thank you for being you and for being a great teacher and just an awesome guy to have around. And
thank you.
Thanks for having a chat with me today.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.